In creating a presentation over the issue of fast fashion, my research took me down a rabbit hole that led me to the conclusion that overconsumption is toxic to the American economy and the health and well-being of Americans as well as the planet as a whole. A large portion of the goods that Americans consume daily are imported from overseas. Because of the massive amounts of imports America brings in daily, it's nearly impossible to effectively inspect the cargo that comes in, making certain fentanyl precursors possible to slip into nondescript items and be sealed into things like cat food bags, especially in small quantities. The shipping from these imports also impacts global CO2 levels, with total international trade emitting a total of nearly 600 million tons in 2023. Once these products are thrown away, donated, or recycled, they are sent to any number of waste management systems that often result in these either being put into landfills or exported again, and then either broken open and burned in unregulated markets so that useful components may be harvested and sold, like with e-waste, or that products themselves can be resold, like with clothing items. However, due to the increasing quantity and decreasing quality of these products, resale becomes more and more difficult. In countries like the United States, social media trends, aggressive advertising, and general apathy from the consumer contribute to a culture of buying, using, and throwing away at a blistering pace in every aspect of our lives. This is an issue because it is not sustainable and will likely have devastating impacts on the lives and health of people not only in the United States, but likely even worse impacts worldwide. Opioids such as fentanyl killed over 70,000 people in the United States alone in 2023. Massive amounts of CO2 emissions from such a high amount of international shipping contribute to climate change and the impending destruction of many ecosystems, which will ultimately lead to mass migrations as well as a number of other issues. The resulting waste of overconsumption contributes to ever-increasing landfills, as well as the poisoning of environments in which items like clothing and e-waste are broken down or resold. This will potentially cause health issues in these populations, as these materials are often handled without personal protective equipment or management of hazardous materials. But the main reason I chose overconsumption as a topic is because, in my opinion, we have a much better chance of doing something about it than with something broader and more pervasive like exploitation, though it still will not be easy. The consumer themselves have a direct impact on what they choose to consume. We can opt to purchase durable, long-lasting clothing instead of cheap fast fashion items, which can easily be purchased secondhand if not new, or even rented from services like Rent the Runway or Trends. Regarding electronics, one can prioritize user serviceability when purchasing to escape the cycle of simply throwing out entire devices that become outdated, which ends up polluting environments in places like China and Ghana with e-waste. Instead of looking for what is new, we could look simply for what works. On a business level, it would be beneficial to reevaluate the current management of electronic systems, particularly computers, that become obsolete or break down. Many of the items of e-waste that are processed in illegal markets come from institutions such as prisons, hospitals, and even school districts. While not a robust solution, I believe it would be a step in the right direction to require manufacturers not to solder in components like RAM and storage drives, making them easily serviceable by anyone in the average IT department, so that an entire laptop does not need to be replaced over a failed component. Limiting our consumption on multiple levels will have beneficial effects on the environment, the economy, and even drug death rates. It is a goal that can be pursued by anyone from the average consumer to large institutions at relatively little cost. The only problem, and perhaps the hardest part, is convincing anybody that it's worth doing. Some of the risks of limiting our consumption to such a degree are that it will heavily disrupt the status quo of the global economy and require many changes with unforeseen consequences as markets adjust to a less wasteful lifestyle. We will need to change our mindset about wasteful consumption at a national level. This will be uncomfortable for some and impossible for others when it comes to purchasing necessities like food in a way that minimizes waste. Corporations who benefit from overconsumption are also going to be hesitant to change their business models unless it can be proven to be more profitable to do so than otherwise, as environmental concerns are not prioritized. While the nature of a social issue is that it must be corrected by large groups of people at every level of a society, the reason I chose overconsumption is because it is one of the few social issues that I can do something about in some way today by finding something to do that is as simple as repurposing the old box of clothes in my home or building new computers out of the 6 or 7 older ones I'm holding on to.